1 year has passed since Mahawk, the female elk, gave birth to Saha. The cougar we have named Socks has endured a merciless winter. The wolf couple, Wamit and Enap, and Abisi the coyote, have fought off the cold with cunning and guile. Stowabi, the rattlesnake, has lived through the winter in a state of profound torpor. A new spring has arrived, and Kenawa, the white-tailed deer, has given birth to twins. And in Enap's den, her 2 wolf cubs open their eyes and see the world for the first time. Generally dry, cold air with little precipitation, terrible winters and short summers, splendid autumns and late springs. This is how one could sum up the seasonal cycles in the Rocky Mountains and the prairies. Postponed for so long by the hardships of winter, springtime feels like a time for jubilation. In a small mound of loose soil, Enap the wolf has made a den. Here, 15 days ago, she gave birth to a litter of 2 cubs, Yaha and Lasti. Today they are old enough for their first outing, their first expedition into the exciting world. Though born inert and blind, these little adventurers are already reckless. But they don't yet have the strength to set off on lengthy adventures. During these first few weeks of their lives, though they may not know it, their mother is always close by and watching. If they had belonged to a larger pack, another female would sometimes play the role of nanny and watch over the young. A few minutes of walking is enough to exhaust them. For now, Yaha and Lasti return to their warm den in the earth, which so efficiently preserves the heat from their bodies. On the prairies, where the bison roam, a female gets ready to give birth. 40 kilograms of blood and bone to push out. 40 kilograms of flesh to add to the flesh of the world. 40 kilograms of suffering and joy. The young bison is born. Further off, another female has lost her strength. Life abandoned her just as she was about to bring life into the world. The mother, sometimes with the help of another female, ingests the placenta, and then, as instinct commands, she will lick and stimulate her calf until he stands up, each time more sturdy on his inexperienced legs. On the prairie where the newborn bison will roam, it seems as if a voice can be sometimes heard in the wind, speaking in the words of the first people of this land. Look high and low. The Bison Nation has come. I give you this magnificent land where you will live and multiply. You will roam in harmony on this earth. Look high and low. The Bison Nation has come. A crow, who doesn't realize the trouble she's gotten into, has perched right in the middle of the nesting territory of a large number of smaller birds. For these smaller birds and their babies, she represents a danger, like a raptor or a predator. They must get rid of her at all costs. If they coordinate their efforts, the little birds can manage it by screeching and pecking at her. A strategy of harassment is set in motion. All against one. The slogan is adopted unanimously, except for one dissenter. But the crow's voice doesn't really count in this vote. Wherever the interloper goes, she is pursued by the pack of assailants. And so it will continue until she understands that she cannot stay near the nests where she could kill any number of baby birds with a peck of her beak. Kenowa, the white-tailed doe, spends most of her time away from her fawns. She comes to see them only intermittently. Today, her arrival doesn't disturb the sleeping Nitsimi. The mother grooms and nurses his brother Ikoan, her firstborn. Still unsteady on his inexperienced legs, Nitsimi wants his turn for a little attention and moves towards his mother, ready to beg. The moment seemed right, but Kenawa continues to care for Ikoan. Nitsimi doesn't have any choice but to accept the situation. His mother won't stay long, and Nitsimi won't be able to lay claim to the favors she just bestowed upon Ikoan until her next visit. The fawns are odorless, and only their mother's scent, if she lingered too long, could attract predators. The rest of the time, Ikoan and Nitsimi stay curled up in their grass cradle, where their coats blend in with the surroundings and become part of the sun-dappled decor. Stowabi is a western diamondback, one of the world's most venomous snakes. He is a member of the rattlesnake species. Today, as usual, Stowabi glides over the rocks and the grasses that have been warmed by the sun. A field mouse, a hare, or a small bird would normally suit his appetite, but instead he ventures onto the edge of a rock where some pheasants have wandered. Pheasants, usually too large, are too difficult to grasp and move too slowly through his digestive tract. So he disregards them as a meal, even when they approach him. Even though he doesn't want to eat them, Stowabi doesn't like anything to come too close. The young pheasant who does so will pay the price. Stowabi has struck with a single blow. At the same moment, the two large fangs emerged from the crevice inside his jaw, where they are usually tucked away. When they pierce the flesh of the prey, these fangs inject two substances. First, a neurotoxin. It's already stopped the heart and the lungs, while the second, a hemotoxin, has destroyed the blood vessels. Stowabi has given in to his aggressive instincts more than the call of his appetite. The prey is too big, but the snake's jaws, when disconnected from each other, will allow very large pieces of food to pass through. Absorbing the bird will take time. Stowabi retires to a rocky crevice. Soon after the first hour or two of life, when the young bison wobble on their rubbery legs, they have one thing on their mind: to venture out into the world toward their fellow creatures, toward the unknown. Their mother prudently watches over them so they don't bother the other females. Bisons who are less than 2 years old are some of the most curious and playful animals on the vast prairie. Each encounter, each unexpected situation fills them with excitement. The young bison must strengthen his legs. He must trot, run, gallop, as if he were expected to cross the entire green ocean of prairies the very next day. He must gallop in memory of the time when there were 60 million bison roaming, painting the plains brown. He must gallop to escape all the cougars under the sun. He must gallop as if he were already joining a loud, rumbling herd on the move, following an old, experienced cow, with other elders taking up the lead from time to time. From pasture to pasture, the herd will raise the dust of those wide trails visible from the sky, blazed by the hooves of their ancestors. For Stawabi, absorbing and digesting the young pheasant was an impossible task, but the feathered creature's death will not be in vain. Nothing is lost in the wild. He will provide a feast for a starving rodent, or a fox, a coyote, or a crow. In the springtime, the American black bear likes to frequent the banks of streams, lakes, or swamps. This year's young were born in the den, in the dead of winter, and stayed there, feeding from their mother. Their 1-year-old adolescent brothers and sisters are still playful and sociable. This will not last. As adults, they will become solitary, often aggressive and protective of their territory, which they will mark with their scent and claw marks on the trees. Three black bears start to play. Each will display a disposition that has made this species one of the best adapted to life in the forest. When afraid, a young bear will instinctively run up the nearest tree using quick, short leaps. This is how black bears learn to climb. A good part of their lives will take place in the trees, where they will find shelter, food, a play area, and of course, a lookout. A second bear plays with his food, which at the moment consists of foliage. Playing in the water also improves their skills. A bear must know how to swim to roam a large territory. The bear has much less flair for climbing down trees. He does so clumsily and backwards. The bears on the ground seem unconcerned and play on. Sometimes the climber touches the ground easily, but often he lets himself fall from 4 or 5 meters up. The bear's favorite game, however, is wrestling. The climber, for example, couldn't be better entertained than by annoying in turn the eater and the bather. During battle, bears often stand on their hind legs. Like humans, they can walk on the soles of their feet, easily balancing even during these play fights. It's also the position in which he can better pick up scents in the air and perceive sounds. His keen sense of smell and sharp hearing compensate for a weak eyesight. The days grow longer. Numerous summer showers have saturated the prairie landscapes, turning it green. Millions of migratory birds have flown north over the Rocky Mountains. Spring is already almost over. It's the beginning of summer, and the aquatic plants are bursting with nutrients and minerals. In the middle of the river, a female moose is stalking up on them. She picks them with one bite of her incisors and with the help of her large, mobile, protruding upper lip. The moose grazing underwater finds other benefits besides ingesting nutritious plants. Her odors are also washed away by the current, and here most predators can't reach her. Moreover, it's easier for her short neck to reach the ground when her hooves have sunk down a little in the mud. Generally speaking, moose have adapted well to the aquatic environment. They have long legs and a huge lung capacity, forked hooves that spread over a wider surface, and a strong swimming ability, allowing them to travel distances of more than 20 kilometers through the water. A calf born the previous season follows closely behind his mother. A male nearby shows interest in them. He is young. His antlers are beginning their annual growth. He approaches them. But the mating season hasn't yet begun. The female won't be ready until later, in the autumn. With a single grunt, she makes her disapproval clear. She'll quickly walk away, leaving behind the rejected, premature seducer. The change of season has made the deciduous forest more lush. Aspen, birch, larch, and cedar trees have recovered their full glory. Three months have passed since the birth of the wolf cubs Yaha and Lasti. Weaned like his brother in their 8th week, Yaha enthusiastically tears apart his food, which his parents now leave in whole pieces in front of the den, no longer chewing it for them first. Womit and Enap, the parents, are never gone for long. This couple will stay together for several years, forming the core of a pack that will expand as the family grows and as they adopt strays. Yaha, his meal barely finished, follows his father. Who knows, maybe he will take him along to chase game and teach him the strategies the great hunters are famous for. Meanwhile, Lasti improves his knowledge of the plant world and sniffs the flowers to sharpen his sense of smell. Before long, he misses his brother and looks for him. When the two brothers get together, it's usually to play, an activity that will train them for the hunt. He approaches stealthily, sets an ambush, pretends to run away, hides behind something, then attacks the enemy by surprise. He will perfect these tactics later with others, when he has become a member of a pack, when he will have to coordinate his efforts with those of the other hunters, and when the game becomes a true matter of life and death. The mountain goats of the Rockies are one of the world's best adapted species for life in high altitudes. They climb to safety away from predators, such as the wolf, the cougar, or the grizzly on high cliffs near the peaks. At the very least, they stay above the tree line. But come summer, the females choose to descend to the foothills, where they can lick the salty outcrops to supplement the mineral intake of their regular diet. Even this year's young, who are still demanding the teat that their mother refuses to give them, must learn to lick the rocks. The female cougar named Socks is a young adult who has for several seasons now marked out her territory. She defines its borders with traces of urine, claw marks at the base of trees, and her own odor, which she leaves behind by rubbing her chest on the bark of trees. Female cougars accept that certain parts of their territory overlap with those of their neighbors. However, cougars do not spend time together. Depending on the availability of prey, up to 9 cougars can occupy an area covering 100 square kilometers. Walking to the furthest limits of her territory, not far from Takakaw Falls, Socks finds an emerald lake containing mineral-rich sediment particles that reflect the blue and green bands of the light spectrum. The glaciers, whose moraines prevent the water from escaping, feed this jewel of a lake. A female and her calf hurry to catch up with the herd which has left them far behind. From one pasture to another, the herds of bison can cover great distances, at times running more than 50 kilometers an hour. At the end of their journey, they often find particular species of seasonal plants that they enjoy eating. The last strips of their winter coats have fallen away, and the bison now look like immense, solemn, muscular statues. The males with shining coats are getting in shape before July arrives, when they will battle their rivals. Some will meet this deadline weighing more than 1,000 kilograms. The prairie bison no longer have access to an entire continent as they did in the 19th century, when they were 60 million strong. At that time, they lived in harmony with men who considered them as brothers. These men did not kill a beast without first begging its forgiveness, and then only after having asked for permission from the Great Spirit. They killed only when necessary, for nourishment, to wear its coat, and to take shelter under its hide. Today, if a young bison frightened by the horns of a large male wanted to run to the four corners of the earth, he would soon be stopped by fences at the end of the road. Prayers are no longer offered to the setting sun in celebration of the alliance between human and bison nations. Every night, Abisi the coyote embarks on an adventure in search of prey to kill or carcasses the wolves might have abandoned. Along his path, he deciphers the scents of wanderers who preceded him. With a spray of urine, he leaves his own signature on the territorial limits imposed by others. Further on, he rubs his body against a tree to leave a trace of his scent and lay claim to the property. The coyote has glands at the base of his tail and other areas of his body that emit strong-smelling secretions. He rolls on the ground to infuse it with this scent, as if planting his flag on conquered ground. To make their potential predators' task more difficult, a few elk have spent the night on small islands in the middle of a river. They rest there, enjoying the cool morning as long as they can. An adolescent, whose young age allows him to stay with the females of the herd for the summer, rehearses the behavior that will later be driven by his male instincts. Part of the herd has already crossed the river to return to the pastures. The stragglers, whose play fights brought them carelessly downstream, realize they can no longer ford the river here. The current is too strong. The reckless youngsters must turn back. Before they can hope to join the others, they'll have to make a detour to find a more manageable point of crossing. From one season to the other, from one era to the next, the elk have always found fords and passages. They have known how to survive on a continent where they are the most noble prey sought after by large predators. 70,000 strong, they roam freely over the immense expanses of this land called Canada. The Earth sometimes offers up its past, which can be read as easily as a book. In the beginning, these layers, formed by the sediment of a forgotten ocean, were horizontal. Subjected to enormous pressure, the Earth's crust cracked into disorderly pieces. They piled up, one on top of the other, diagonally or vertically, forming the Rocky Mountains over 120 million years ago. Some bighorn sheep walk along the ridge of this geological past. There is no better example of the challenges that living creatures face on this continent. It is a battle with the Earth. Everywhere, living beings have enough to worry about. They must survive the predators. But here, the ground itself is a predator, and kills with weapons of a different kind. Winter, mountains, torrents, frost, storms, cliffs, glaciers. Life has lost its way, alone on a rock that blocks its path, and on which, despite everything, she will find her way again. The morning light reveals leaves, branches, and grasses ridged by hoarfrost. Autumn has already returned. A terrible asymmetry between seasons, an endless cycle where lives are extinguished at each and every moment. In a clearing, a moose and her daughter rest, graze, and digest. Attracted by their scent, a young male approaches. The seducer enters the clearing. He doesn't want a harem, just a single, willing female, whom he'll accept, even with her offspring. But all things considered, the situation is not as simple as it seemed. A male is already there, with antlers ready and waiting. Before mating, the young one must prove that he can take over from others more powerful than he. It's the law of the strongest. Here, youth must test its limits each and every season. Only the bearer of the crown of maturity and the dewlap of experience can take on the responsibility of the survival of the species. Others fade into insignificance. Laste, who has been fascinated by plants from his first days of life, has added them to his menu. His brother Yaha, truer to his genes, would like his brother to take on more warlike interests and throw himself into their games with more enthusiasm. Yaha craves wild chases, wrestling matches, battles worthy of fierce predators. He'll try to engage his brother in combat. An unexpected opportunity suddenly presents itself. Wolf cubs are theoretically capable of leaping onto a prey, overpowering it and breaking its bones, but the distance is great between theory and practice when one is only 4 months old. The rodent manages to confuse them and escapes. Someday, thanks to the training provided by their parents, Yaha and Lasti will be quick and tough, loyal to the pack, capable of overpowering an adult moose, toppling him to the ground and devouring his entrails. But for now, even a baby mouse is too much for them. Not long ago, the loud, bellowing call of Moko, the large male elk, echoed over this land. Today, wherever he can, Moko leaves the signs of his power in the forest. On his path, his rivals will find branches he has broken, earth he has disturbed with his antlers, and the scent of his urine. But this year, Moko is not able to impose his rule. Other lone males corner and challenge him. Moko's call is still the most deafening, but somewhere another male rules the harem that once belonged to him, when past autumns painted the forest with blazing colors. On this continent, the great cycles that govern life lead to merciless turns of events. The harshness and contrast of the seasons make them seem more habitual, more inevitable than elsewhere. In a few weeks, the caribou migration will drive hundreds of thousands of cervids into the coniferous forests, where the lichen and moss grow more abundant than anywhere else, and will provide the caribou with nourishment all winter long. A whole population will soon move forward, rushing on the heels of the pioneers. Mountains and cliffs, rivers and torrents, glaciers and snowy slopes, nature will throw many obstacles on the paths of the walkers. Soon snowstorms and avalanches will come, blizzards and dark nights, fear and hunger. Many will die, but many more will survive. They will return next season for a new journey. Because on this continent, home to the most developed industrial civilization in the world, vast wilderness remains untouched. According to native beliefs, at the last moment of any life, there is an exchange. From one life to another, from matter to energy. From the beginning of time, nothing has died, nothing has been lost.